Okay, hello and welcome to the Record Players Podcast. My name's Haddy, and as usual, I'm joined by Jack and Dennis. This is an episode of The Bridge, our short form review segment. So today we're going to take a look at the newest release from the late great legend Prince. The album's called Welcome to America. Let's do this. Okay, now if you enjoy our channel, please remember to like and subscribe. And if you got an opinion on this project, leave us a comment. Tell us, did you love it? Did you hate it? And we will try to reply to every opinion. So without further ado, yeah, let's get into it. So yeah, I mean, I'm, a bit of background. I'm, a huge Prince fan. Generally more of his classic era, 80s and 90s. I kind of dabbled in some more modern releases, but there's nothing that's kind of swayed me as much. This album, obviously, for those that don't know, it's a posthumous album, so it's kind of technically you could say it's released without his blessing, which can kind of trigger kind of mixed feelings, especially with how protective he was over his work. But in terms of my impression, I thought it was really good. I thought it felt like a kind of finished piece of work that didn't have to, didn't sound kind of patched together. There was kind of sonic cohesion. I think we were mentioning it before, but he's kind of playing with the same instrumentalist, so it does kind of feel, really kind of concise and flowing. Especially, it starts off to a really strong start. I think the opening four tracks, really kind of took me by surprise by how good they were. I had a bit of a dip in the midsection that we can go into, but I kind of didn't like as much the middle bit, but then it kind of picked up near the end. But yeah, overall, I thought it was, really, really impressive. Dennis, what about you? How'd you get on with this?
Well, I was coming at it not as a Prince fan. I'm aware of Prince and I'm aware that he's good, and I'm aware of certain songs that he's done, obviously, because I don't live under a rock, which are famous. But I've never really sat down and actually gone through, some of his famous albums, like, crap.
Purple Rain, Sign of the Times, 1999. Yeah,
that's
the one. All mandatory listens.
Definitely. I just need to give him the time of day, and I will do at some point. But coming at it on this sort of not as a Prince fan, so just looking at it just as a fresh album, objectively, I really, really enjoyed it. Some of the personnel on it are really, really cool. Tal Wilkenfeld and Chris Coleman and drums. They made waves. Chris Coleman has been actually at the time that this was being released. Chris Coleman was a really sort of up and coming drummer. He was sort of a young guy. Same with Tal, I guess. Fairly young musicians, but still very accomplished in their respective fields.
But this album, the sessions are from 2010, I believe, right?
Yes.
Around then. So yeah, we're like a decade out. Obviously, I think he passed. When did he pass? Like 2015, 16?
I think it was 16, wasn't it? Because that was the year that all the celebrities were getting taken out.
Yeah, but sorry to cut you off, Dennis.
But overall, there's I thought there's some really cool songs on here. Most of it is written by Prince. I think there's a few that aren't written by Prince, and I'm not such a fan of the songs that aren't written primarily by him. They sound more cookie cutter and sort of less natural, but overall, you get there's some funky songs on here. There's some groovy songs on here. You wouldn't even know that it was written in 2010. You'd think it was written in the 1960s or something.
That's what I say for me. The blend of how fresh the music sounded, but how much it kind of throwed back at the same time without kind of pulling too far either way was really impressive. So I would agree with everything you said there. So I'll chuck it to you, Jack. I'll probably say, like I said, as much as I'm a Prince fan, I'd probably say you're the biggest Prince fan of us. And this was your pick. So did it live up to your expectations? And also, I'd like to get your opinion on, again, you will know as much as me how much Prince was against kind of his work being released without his permission, all the beefs he had with his labels and everything. So, did it sit right with you that this is even coming out, as well as your general opinions of the music?
Yeah, I think in terms of like it living up to the rest of his catalogue, I absolutely agree that this is going back to like the pre 3121 stuff when he had that different sound and he wasn't I kind of categorized them as the geometric album art covers. You know, all the modern stuff where he's got an afro, and a lot of them, there's a lot of like sigils in the background. Like it was really different to that kind of 80s flamboyant stuff that he was doing well into the 90s and the early 2000s. But yeah, this has got all of the funk from the earlier stuff in, and the main thing that stuck with me is some of the absolutely raw shredding that comes up on this album, particularly in the second half. That is, like, to me, one of the most impressive things about Prince, because obviously I'm a guitarist, I love hearing good guitar. He's an amazing songwriter, he's an incredibly talented singer, but what's always got me is the way that he layers on top of that such a kind of raw and melodic style of soloing, and it's something that's been lacking a little bit sometimes in recent years. But yeah, this album was just a tour de force of that. In terms of his stuff being released, I agree that like he was super protective of it, and the fact that it's all gone on YouTube like so soon after him dying and obviously not being able to fight it anymore is a bit sad, but it gets more people to discover the music, which is good. I think probably like the best part of this album and what makes it feel so genuine is the studio recordings being done before, but also using the New Power Generation singers and artists that he was working with anyway, and that really like gives it validity as a Prince album, because all of his albums are always Prince as the mastermind, he's the captain of the ship, but then he's got his crew of musicians that he's working with and that he trusts to make those decisions, and they've kind of kept that crew together as much as possible for this album.
Yeah, and I think you could tell like the kind of you know, his vocal layers, you know, his harmonies, especially on a track like say When She Comes, for example, they work so well with the background singers kind of interloping. It all feels so smooth and fluid. But yeah, no, I agree with all your points. So
it feels like they used a lot of backing. Like he's very good with his orchestration anyway, but they used a lot of other people singing a verse or singing a bridge or giving extra layers that it sounded like he might have been the guy to come back in after they've recorded the main tracks and put that harmony layer in himself, but now someone else is doing it, but because of who they've got to do it, it still gives that genuine vibe. Yeah,
there was even one or two tracks that kind of were even duetting, where there was like another vocalist was like the lead. I think it was Stand Up and Be Strong was the one that comes to mind. But yeah, I mean, so cool. So it seems like we're all pretty positive on the record, which is good. Before we move on to say some of our favorite tracks, just very quickly, was there anything that you guys didn't like or came away with like a sour taste in your mouth, or were we all good?
Well, the sort of preachy message of the album I wasn't such a fan of. I guess this is sort of in the early days of sort of Black Lives Matter. I can't remember sort of when that really started to kick off, but in 2010, I would think that it was still sort of a fairly early movement. Some of the sort of message of like America is like unfair, and it's still sort of I think it's in Running Game. No, it's in Welcome to America. It's like home of the free, land of the slave.
I fucking love that.
I was gonna say
that spoken word.
I agree to a point, but it's definitely like that's a narrative that trails off a little bit towards the end, and it becomes more kind of like Prince is always very celebratory. Like let's look at the positive instead of being down, and I think it becomes that. But yeah, I thought some of the like the subversions of our expectations, like that phrase you just said, I thought some of that stuff was really, really good. I agree.
Definitely.
It was definitely heavy on that at the start, though.
Yeah, I definitely hear what you mean, though. In that, it's not like pitying itself. It is just like celebrating itself, which is looking at the positive, which is cool.
I mean the fact that it maybe starts on up there with themes. I'm trying to put my finger, but my background's cutting off, and then it kind of tails off in terms of the messages towards the end might be symptomatic of perhaps places where the album isn't necessarily fully finished. So musically, I think it's good to go. It's pre-baked, but yeah, maybe there could have been some tweaks with the messaging and the flows, kind of the track list even to make things more consistent, perhaps. But yeah, so I didn't necessarily have anything bad. I thought there were two weak tracks for me: Hot Summer and Stand Up and Be Strong. I thought in the middle, two tracks in the middle were a bit cheesy and derivative, but everything on either side, I really enjoyed throughout. So
yeah, Stand Up and Be Strong wasn't written by him. It was written by Dave Peimer, which
right.
yeah, I wasn't such a fan of that. And Same Page, Different Book was also co-written with somebody else as well. And it was an alright song. It's on my top 3, but yeah, some of the pure Prince songs I think were more standout.
Okay. Well, let's go into it quick. So yeah, Dennis, your top 3. So you said Same Page, Different Book.
Yeah, I quite like that. 1010, Rin Tin Tin. That I thought, yeah, that was really good. Born to Die, that was so funky. But yeah, there's so much funk
The
and
hooks,
groove.
the hooks, bro, on tracks like Born to Die. Yeah, yeah. Jack, what about you? Any favorites?
Yeah, I think Born to Die has got to be up there as well. That was the moment where I was like, we're hitting that old school classic Prince. There's a few at the tail end that I could pull out, but I just want to say anything that has that raw driven single coil Prince sound, I'm down for. So like a decent proportion of the second half of the album, I'm here for. Yeah, kind of from Same Page, or maybe even Check the Record onwards. Yeah, I'm down.
Yeah, well, Check the Record was a proper rocky one, right? Probably the most rock influenced, at least of the lot. Again, another very catchy song as well. But yeah, for me, my favorites. I mean, they're all tracks that we've mentioned. I really liked "Welcome to America" as the opener. I was just so like kind of just in. It felt like a hypnotizing track. It almost reminded me of like Funkadelic. A classic Funkadelic song. I also love Born to Die. Upset. I was, his falsetto on this song was insane and such great instrumentation. And yeah, Same Page, Different Book. I mean, that track actually gave me, it feels weird saying it, but that track gave me a D'Angelo vibe. And I know D'Angelo is super influenced by Prince. So when I listened to that, it sounded so much like D'Angelo's last album, Black Messiah. And I wondered what Prince thought of him. And is it like, he influenced D'Angelo a lot? Now was he looking at him being, I fuck with this sound. Maybe I'm gonna pull some of my own shit back.
Going full
I could only imagine he rated him.
Yeah,
I can't imagine Prince hating D'Angelo.
Nah.
Cool. Okay. Well, let's just do our ratings then, and go from there. So again, I will. Okay. Well, I'll start with me. So. Because I don't want to get bogged down with the tactical shit. I'm going to give this a fire. This exceeded my expectations from any posthumous release. And again, I love Prince, but I'm not, I wasn't necessarily checking out everything he released. It was more like the classic shit. So this, exceeded my expectations everywhere. It felt like a finished body of work. I'll definitely revisit it. So it's a fire. Dennis, what about you?
I'm going to give this a back pat. It would be a fire, but the preachy messages and the one or two tracks that are sort of not so written by him, and as you mentioned, when you really pay attention to it, it does sort of feel slightly unfinished. But really, I think at that point you're becoming nitpicky. But yeah, there are certain elements which bring it down for me. So yeah, it's a back pat for me.
Okay, not bad. Jack.
This is a fire album. It's not like groundbreaking and revolutionary in the sense that it's new for Prince himself, but it's got such a fantastic mix of styles, and it's got a fantastic mix of like throwback and modern stuff. Kind of thinking back to the Laurent Viola stuff we were looking at a couple of weeks ago. This is like the perfect marriage of, we can still be funky, we can still have bass driven songs, we can still have 808s popping up, but I've also got all of these other layers that I'm capable of, and I can make a rock song, and I can put a solo in an R&B track, and like yeah, all those sorts of things he pulls together. Yeah, it's great.
Completely agree. Yeah. Okay, so in that case, the consensus would put it as a lowish fire. I'd say Dennis pulling back. I'm not mad at that. I was probably on the low end of fire, but yeah, I really enjoyed it. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's it. So yeah, that's Prince. Welcome to America. I think we could all say it's worth a listen, at the very least. I guess the last thing I would ask is, you know, the next. The next posthumous release from him, I'm sure they're going to put something out. Are we going to check it out? Jack, I mean, you don't even need to talk.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to listen to it.
Dennis, let's say we're not reviewing it. Are you going to check out what he does?
100%.
What the estate decides to put out next?
100%. Jack goes on about Prince, and I think it's with good reason. I think he's a musical genius. So yeah, any little snippets that he puts out, yeah, it's worth a listen.
Cool. All right. Well, yeah, I mean, that about does it. Any final words? Anyone?
I think if you've not listened to Prince before, this album is like a perfectly fine place to start. Yeah. Because it's new. It doesn't have all of the like expectations layered on it, but it's very Prince. This is a great way in.
Yeah. You let her get a little kind of bit of tapas of kind of all the little elements that he's done for his career, I think. So cool. Awesome. Well, yeah, like I said, like and subscribe. Let us know what you think, and we will see you next weekend.
Peace.
All right, peace.
Peace. I am ecstatic, as you can probably tell from my face.
I need a house remix of it.
I wrote only one note for that song, and it was fuck Polo G.
I will come over to your house and beat you up. I feel like Dennis is going to throw some spanners in the works.
People were triggered.
What's wrong with you?
Could I put this in Mind Blown?